Hey everyone, welcome back. This is lesson 10 for Hyperbolas part 2. All right, so writing an equation of hyperbolas. So here we already have it written out for us. So we get to look at the graph first, and then we just get to write the equation in standard form. So I think you'll find this pretty easy. So first step I want you to take a look at, is it going to be written in the form x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared equals 1, or will it be y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared equals 1? Well, when I look at this, if I put those two pieces closer together, they look more like an x. So I can tell that it's going to be the x, which is going to be my equation that we're going to use. So identify the form of the equation. And the graph opens horizontally, so the equation will be in the form of x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared equals 1. So that's a really important part of this whole thing, is determining which equation to use. So now that we've determined that, let's keep going. All right, once again, I've written the graph up here for us. So next thing we need to do is identify the center and the vertices. Well, I can see the center of the graph is 0, 0. Just by looking at this, I can see that. And the vertices are at -6, 0. So there's one. And +6, 0. There's the other one. And the covertices, just by looking at this, are going to be at 0, -6, and 0, +6. So that tells me that A is going to be 6 and also B is 6. So now it's really easy. So I just have to write the equation. Because A is 6 and B is 6, the equation of the graph is x squared over 6 squared minus y squared over 6 squared equals 1. Or you could write it out with, go ahead and work this out to 36. And I will accept either way for your problems in your test. All right, here's another example. It says write the equations of the hyperbola. And this time we have a center at the origin and a vertex and a focus. Okay, so I don't have a covertex written. I've got a vertex. So let's see what to do first. The first thing we have to do is, because the vertex and the focus are on the horizontal x-axis, so let's check and make sure that's true. So it says the hyperbola is at the center as the origin. All right, and the vertex is at 4, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I have another vertex then, I would know, at 1, 2, 3, 4 this way. All right, and a focus at 10, 0. All right, so my focus is going to be way out here. All right, and so what that tells me is that my graph is going to look like this. Let's see if I can get that. And this. All right, so that tells me that it's going to be in the x squared form first. All right, my x squared is going to be first. Now, I've got my a already. My a is going to be 4. That's easy. But what I don't have is b. I have a c for my focus, but I don't have a b. So we're going to have to use that relationship. All right, so I have A equals 4 and C equals 10. So here's my relationship that we're going to use, and I'm going to solve for B squared. So when I substitute, I end up with B squared equals 84. So the equation of the hyperbola is just right here. All right, so x squared over 16, which was my A squared, and minus y squared over 84, which is my b squared, equals 1. All right, so try this one on your own. Turn the video off for just a minute and give it a try. Okay, hope that you were able to figure that out. Let's just draw a quick sketch of this first of all, so we know what's happening. It says write an equation in standard form for each hyperbola. So this time they give us a vertex and the covertex, so that's really lucky. So my vertex is at 0, 9, 0, 9. All right, that's my vertex. So that means my other vertex is going to be at 0, -9. So if those are my main vertex, I can see that my parabola is going to look like this. All right, because my covertex, this other end, is going to be 7, 0. and negative 7, 0. All right, so I kind of have an idea of what it's going to look like. So if it looks like the y, what does that tell me the equation is going to look like? Well, you should have said y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared equals 1. So once you've done that, we easily have our a and we have our b already, because it said our a was 9 and our b is 7. And so once you know that, rest is really easy. Just fill in the blanks. So you can either leave it as 9 squared or you can change it to 81. Either way is fine. I particularly like keeping it at the squared because then it's easier to graph. But if you want to change it to 81 and 49, that's fine too. All right, here's another one for you to try on your own. Turn your video off and give it a try. All right, so the first thing I hope you probably did was to go ahead and sketch out what your graph is going to look like. It says that we have a vertex at 8, 0. 8, 0, let's put it there. And so I know I have another one at negative 8, 0. So that tells me that my parabola is going to look like this. And I also have a focus at 10, 0. All right, so that's out here somewhere. So that confirms that I have written it out. So those two pieces kind of form an X, so I know which equation to use. I can use this equation that starts with x squared first. I've already got my a, which is 8, but I need to get to b squared. So I'm going to have to use the relationship. All right, so here I have my 8 equals a equals 8 and c equals 10. I'm going to use the c squared equals a squared plus b squared, solve for b. And when I substitute in all of that, I end up with b squared equals 36. And so now I have my equation, x squared over 64, which is 8 squared, minus y squared over 36 equals 1. Now, I have told you just a minute ago that I don't mind whether you write it like this or 8 squared minus 36, or sorry, that's 6 squared. I don't mind, but you have to do them both the same. You can't have one 8 squared and the other one 36. Do them both the same. Okay, as with circles and ellipses, hyperbolas do not have to be centered at the origin. All right, so let's take a look at this example. Remember, our hyperbola in standard form is x minus h squared minus y minus k squared equals 1. All right, and so h and k are the center. H and k is going to be my center. So in this case, it's going to be 2, 5. If you get confused, I always just look at this whole piece and I say, what is x to make this whole thing 0? Well, if x is 2, 2 minus 2 is 0, and y, 5 minus 5 is 0, so that's how I come up with my 2 and 5 also. Either way, whatever works for you. All right, so now that I know my center, let's go ahead and take a look. Here's what it actually looks like. We're going to kind of go backwards on this. So I know my center is at 2, 5. So over 2, up 5, somewhere about there. So there's my center point. All right, now that I know that, I can just look at my A and B and notice A is connected with my X, and that would make my parabola going outward horizontally. And my A is 2, so I just have to go over 2 spaces east or west. And there are my 2 points. So my vertices are 2, actually it's 1, 2. Let's see, I'm at 2 here, so I have to go over to 4. So I'm at 4, 5. And on this side, I'm going to go 1, 2 over 0, 5. So that's what my vertices are now. All right, and to find the co-vertices, I'm going to look on my conjugate axis, and it's 6. So I'm going to go up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there's a point, and then the same thing on the bottom. So now to find out what they are, I'm going to just go over 2, up, let's see, 11. So my co-vertex is 2, 11. And here it's going to be 2, comma, -1. All right, so there's where your vertices and covertices are. Next, we can remember draw an X or a box and connect 2 X's through it. There you go. And now I have my asymptotes added on there also. All right, so the next thing we want to do is take a look at one more sample. All right, notice that I have this written in the Y first format, all right? But we still need to get our center point first. And so even though this Y is first, it's Y that gives me the Y component of my center. So the Y component of my center, what number could Y be to make this 0? I know that would be -2. And that's my Y component. And so I need to do my X component also. That would be a +2. All right, so here's my center, even though it's a little bit awkward because of this Y being first. Just keep in mind what that is. All right, so take a look at the graph. Here's my graph. Let's get our center put in, -2, 2, -2, 2. So there's the center. All right, and now all I have to do, my Y is 3. My vertex is going to be 3 up and 3 down from my Y. 1, 2, 3, there's a point. And 1, 2, 3, there's the other point. So for my vertex, I have a vertex at 2, 1, and also a vertex at 2, -5. Now to find the covertex, I'm going to look over here at my X component, and that's 6. So I'm going to count over, and it looks like I'm marked off by 1. So I'm going to count over 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there it is. And then 6 on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there it is. So my covertex is going to be over, looks like over 8. 1, 2, 3, yeah, 8, comma, -2. And on this way, it's going to be 6, -6 too. So there's that. And then if I draw a box between all 4 of them, draw lines through it, I have my asymptotes on it also. All right. Okay, so here's a chart for you to use. I don't find these charts very helpful, but if you like to use it, it might be helpful for you. All right, so let's try an example. It says find the vertices, covertices, and asymptotes of each hyperbola and then graph. So what I like to do first is actually I like to graph it first because to me that just seems easier. So the first thing I'm going to take a look at is what letter do I have first, and I have X first. So that's going to make my X shape. So I know that my hyperbola is going to be my transverse axis is going to be on the X horizontally somewhere. And since it's centered at 0, 0, I know it's going to be like this. And so I'm going to just keep on going here. So let's take a look at what all we can do. So the equation's in the form x squared over a squared first. So the transverse axis is horizontal with the center 0, 0, just what we talked about. Okay, so let's graph this first. So the first thing I'm going to notice is that I have an X first. And when I have an X first, that tells me that my graph is going to look like this. It's going to be opening horizontally. I also know that my A is going to equal 7 because this would be 7 squared and 3 squared. So my B is going to equal 3. So I'm going to have a vertex at 7, 0. And I'm also going to have a vertex at -7, 0. All right, I'm going to have a covertex at 0, 3, and a covertex at 0, -3. All right, so that part's pretty easy. Next, I'm going to go ahead and box that up so I can figure out where my asymptotes go. And that's pretty easy right there. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and draw my asymptotes in by graphing this, drawing these lines through, and I'm drawing it pretty big because I need to get my hyperbola in there. And now that I have that, I can go ahead and draw my hyperbola in, and it's going to go down to my vertex, which I couldn't quite get it there, but it's pretty close. There we go. And that's what your final answer should look like. Now, the last part of this was to determine what our asymptotes, the line for my asymptotes are. And remember, the formula for a line, the equation for a line equals y equals mx plus b. And remember, our m is our rise over run. All right, and my b, when x is 0, y is 0. So I'm actually just going to have to do y equals my slope times x. And slope is rise, which is 1, 2, 3 over 7. So my slope for my asymptote is 3 over 7x. And for my other asymptote, again, rise 3, run negative 7. So y equals plus or minus 3 over 7x. That's your equation for your asymptotes. All right, so that covers all of the problems you needed to do just by drawing a picture of it. All right, I'd like to show you another example. So again, we're going to find the vertices, covertices, and asymptotes of each hyperbola and then graph. And I'm going to actually graph first because I can find everything easier. So the first thing I want to look at is figure out what my graph is actually going to look like. So I'm going to look at this first piece, and I see that there's an X there. So that tells me that my graph is going to look like that. All right, I'm not at center 0, 0. I'm actually at center 3, negative 5. So that's important to know too. All right, so let's get started on our graphing now. We remember that our center point, again, is 3, negative 5. We got that from here and here. So let's go ahead and plot that 3, negative 5, and that's right here. All right, we aren't in our a squared format, so let's change this to be like that, make it 3 squared, and get our b squared in the right format, so that's going to be 7 squared. So I know that my a is going to be 3 and my b is equal to 7, and that's going to help me with finding my vertices. Remember, this started with x first, so that tells me that my hyperbola graph is going to look like that. So my a is going to be on the horizontal line, so I'm going to go 3 over from my center, 1, 2, 3, and 3 over from my center on the other side. All right, now to get my co-vertices, I'm going to go up 7, and I'm going to go down 7. All right, so my vertices are going to be 6, negative 5, and 0, negative 5. My co-vertices are going to be 3, 2, and 3, negative 12. All right, so now that I have my vertices, I'm going to go ahead and draw my box around them, and that is going to help me get my asymptotes drawn. And then once I have my asymptotes, then I can actually draw my hyperbola in. So I'm going to go ahead, I know this is lots of different colors, I'm going to go ahead and draw this in. Not quite accurate, but it's pretty close. All right, so there's my asymptotes, and I remember that my graph needs to look like this, so I can go ahead and graph that in. I'll graph it this color. And there's that. And notice that I started at my vertex, and I never go past my asymptotes. So that's what our graph is actually going to look like. There's only one thing left that we need to do, and that's to write our equation for our asymptotes. All right. Now, you may remember very easily our easy y equals mx plus b equation for a line, but there's also another equation for a line that is really helpful, and that's our point slope equation, which is y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. And in this case, it's much easier to use. So first of all, let's determine what our slope is. And I can tell from my slope, all I did was for my rise, I rise 7 and I run 3. And so there's my slope for one axis, and I have a point on that, which is our center actually, which was 3, -5. So I'm just going to use my point slope formula and fill that in. So I'm going to say y minus a -5, so it's actually going to be y plus 5. Y plus 5 equals, and my slope is 7/3, and my other x minus 3, and there's my equation. Now, I also have another line, and that is going rise 7, run -3. So that is a 7/3. So the equation for that is going to be the same thing, x minus 3. So we end up with y plus 5 equals, and you could just say plus or minus 7/3 times x minus 3. And that's it. All right, try this one on your own. Turn your video off and give it a try. All right, I hope you were able to do this one without too much problem. The lucky thing about this first one is we have to find our center first. And I can see that my center is going to be at 0, 0. So that makes life easy. All right, my a squared is actually equal to 4 squared. And b squared will be 6 squared. So a is going to be 4 and b is going to be 6. All right, so the first thing it tells us to do is find our vertices and our covertices. So from our center, I'm going to look at this. I see that it's x squared is first, so that tells me that my hyperbola is going to look like this. It's going to open horizontally. So my a is going to go 4 to the right and 4 to the left. So my vertices are going to be 4, 0, and -4, 0. All right, for my covertices, I'm going to look at my b, and I see that that's 6. So I'm going to go 6 positive and 6 negative. So for my covertices, I'm at 0, 6, and at 6, 0. Or negative, whoops, I got that totally wrong. 0, -6. All right, so next I want to do is go ahead and box up my vertices, get them boxed up. And when I do that, I can find my asymptotes. So now I'm going to go ahead and draw my asymptotes in. My asymptotes are going to go through the center in each corner. All right. And here they are. Going down a little bit more. All right, so now I've got my asymptotes in and I've got everything. So now I can just draw my parabola in. I'm going to start at my vertices, my vertex here, and draw, and then do the same thing. And there is what our graph looks like. So the last thing I need to do is I still need to write my equation for my asymptote. I'm lucky on this time because I start at 0. So I'm going to remember my format y equals mx plus b. And I can easily see for my slope is rise over run. So I rise 6 and I'm going to run 4. So 6 and 4 is my slope. And since they're both at the centered 0, I can say y equals plus or minus 6/4x. And that is the final answer. That's all you need to do. All right, try another one on your own. Turn the video off and give this one a try. All right, so the first thing we want to look at is what is our center going to be? And I see that here I have a -5, and here I'd have a +1. But notice my 5 is paired with this y, and my x is the 1, so I need to rearrange that to say my center is going to be at 1, negative 5. All right, so let's go ahead and graph that at 1, negative 5 right here. And now the next thing I need to do is get my vertices and my covertices in. So let's rewrite my equation here. This 1 is the same as 1 squared, and 9 is the same as 3 squared. So my A is going to equal 1, and my B equals 3. So now I can go ahead and get that in. Let's remember I had a Y here, so that means my parabola is going to look like this. It's going to open vertically. And so my 1 is going to go up 1 and down 1. And so that tells me that my vertices are 1, negative 6, and 1, negative 4. All right. Now for my covertices, I'm going to be at 3. I got to go over 3 and up 3, over 3 on either side. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. So my covertices are going to be 4, negative 5, and negative 2, negative 5. All right, next thing I need to do is go ahead and box up my vertices. So not too hard. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw my asymptotes in. There we go. And hope that you were able to do this okay. And now I have to go back and look at what it's going to look like. It's going to look like that. So I'm going to start at my vertex and draw it in. And then I'll start at this vertex and draw it in. And there we go. And that's what it should look like. Now, the last thing we need to do is write our equation for our asymptotes. So again, since I didn't start at 0, 0, I'm going to use the y minus y1 equals a slope times x minus x1. All right, I'm going to use for the point that I have in common for both of those as my center. So my point is going to be 1, negative 5. And I just have to figure out my slope is going to be. And I can see that my slope is rise 1, run 3. Okay, so rise 1, run 3. And then the other one is going to be rise 1, run negative 3. So it's 1, negative 3. All right, so my point slope formula, I could say y minus a minus 5, which would be positive 5, equals my slope plus or minus 1 over 3 times x minus my x, which is 1. And there it is. So that's my equation for my asymptotes. And it's a plus or a minus, so it's actually 2 lines. All right, that's all you have to do. All right, so that is the end of our lesson 10-4 Hyperbolas Part 2. See you in class soon. Bye.